Okay, so for part 3, we're going to animate our peptide, the part that you've all been waiting for. So you can, there's lots of ways that you could do this, but I would like the middle frame, so 75, I would like to have my peptide bound in the crystal structure. And then I can control how it moves in at any other point. The first issue, though, we'll encounter, though, is unlike the light, which is one object, this is a lot of different structures. So if I tried to move one, you'll see that this oxygen would just move and nothing else would move. So I'm going to show you a trick for just grouping stuff such that you can move them all together. So click an atom that you find easy to access. Maybe one of these oxygens is easy to see. So what you're going to do is go to your complex. This is my peptide bound. Right-click it, select objects. And you can see that we have all atoms selected, but the color on the central one is a lighter orange, which that means that that's the main selection within all these selections. So now I can parent them such that when I move that one, they will all follow. So it's a really simple command. Just go to the space, Control P, object. And you'll see now you have these dotted lines all going to that one atom. So if I move that atom, my whole peptide will follow. So let's go to the center of our animation, frame 75. And I'm going to click on my central atom and go to location, insert keyframes, and also rotation, because during the animation I'm going to play with the rotation. So I want that to be fixed as well at this point. Now let's move our cursor back to frame 1. So I'm thinking the peptide could start off screen on the right, move in, bind, kind of struggle to get out. I'm thinking kind of like bounce against the edges here, then pop over and come out. So to do that, just go ahead and click on that central atom. It's a little bit easier to see from the Z orthographic view, but I'm just going to drag it out. Stick it somewhere over here. And maybe if I was thinking like the peptide kind of being like a missile, I could orient it such that it's kind of angled, like it's headed in the direction of the MHC. So now just grab this and kind of move it over here. With animation, it's a lot of trial and error. So when I set this up like the first time, it's really unlikely that I'll get it in what I like just the first time. And so it's just kind of like toying with it. I think it might be nice if it kind of starts at a slightly different rotation and then kind of like rotates in. But when I do the rendering, it might look really silly. It might look unnatural. So you just kind of play with it until you get something that you feel looks natural. But just to start, you can always change these. So any of these locations, keyframes you set can be changed. So I'm just going to set it for now. Just right-click, insert keyframe. So now if I watch, you have the peptide just kind of slide in. The tryptophan's facing down, but then it kind of like slides in and just boom, right into the active site. It's a little too perfect. I don't think it would take that direct of a route. So maybe what I will try to do is along the way, maybe like right in here, I'm going to add one more keyframe where I'll move the peptide kind of over here, like as if it's just about to enter, and give it some slight rotation, like it hasn't quite evened out yet. And I'm going to right-click, insert some keyframes. So now if I watch, you'll see that rather than going right in, it kind of goes off to the side and then slides in to the active site. At 175, so once it's inside, I don't want it just to like sit there perfectly still. I want it to be constantly moving. So at 175, I want it to be in its right spot, but maybe at 170, I want it to be kind of the docking position to be slightly off. So I can move this down a tiny bit, go to my Z, and I'm going to move it back as if it has a tight bind. it's bound tightly, but kind of in the wrong spot. And maybe just to, I'm not sure how this will look, but maybe just free rotate just slightly. So it's turned up just a little bit, so I'll have to rotate back down and kind of set that. Right click, insert keyframe, right click, insert keyframe. So this is what our animation looks like. Comes in, rotates, and then kind of adjusts a little bit. And the cool thing about these keyframes is you can move them wherever you want. So if this feels like it's happening a little too early, you can move it over just by just clicking on it and dragging it. So then starting here, I'm going to have the peptide preparing to leave, maybe at frame 100. So now I'm just going to kind of rotate it as if it's getting ready to leave. Maybe shift it over just slightly. Yeah, something like that could work well. So like it tried to leave, but the orientation wasn't quite right, such that one of these methyl groups bumps up against your alpha helix, and which prevents it from leaving. And so then at the next frame, what you can do, just like a few frames later, just kind of drag it back one notch, kind of like it bumped against it and couldn't get out. And go ahead and insert a keyframe. And then I'm going to allow it to leave now. So I'm just going to grab the white one, angle it up just a little bit, drag it over, insert a keyframe, and then somewhere in the middle, I'm kind of thinking in my head like it kind of bounces over it a little bit. I think that'll look a little bit more natural. So you can press insert keyframe, and then I'm just going to go to the end. At 151, if you'll remember, at frame 1, there's no peptide. So at frame 151, we should have no peptide. So I can just grab it, drag it off the screen. Doesn't even matter where. I might add some rotation, because wherever you put it is where it's going to move to that position. So insert some keyframes. Now, watch the animation through, see what you think. Like I said, it's really rare that you'll get something you like on the first time. You can always get lucky, but so it kind of slides in, rotates, comes in sideways, docks, fidgets around for a tiny bit, starts to leave. It's angled downwards, so it kind of like bumps up against the edge, but then it finds its way and kind of bumps over, and it kind of falls down, and then it leaves. So that actually looks better than I expected for the first time. I might just leave it like that. So if I watch this animation at full speed, yeah, that's not bad. Okay. And if you wanted to see what it looks like with the lighting and everything, you can switch to your rendered view, and you just have to it'll just go slightly slower. So you can see every time we animate something, our FPS is going to drop slightly, but you can get an idea of what it'll look like. Okay, so I like how it's looking. So I think we'll leave the animation just like that, and we'll start animating some other things. So that's the end of part 3.